My name is Denise Wright. I'm 27 years old, and for most of my life, I've lived under the long, suffocating shadow of my older sister Ava. Ava Wright, the family's pride, their golden child, the daughter whose name practically dripped from my mother's mouth like honey. She's 3 years older than me, always 2 steps ahead, always brighter in their eyes, no matter how hard I tried. If I scored 95 on an exam, Ava had already aced a scholarship interview. If I bought a nice dress for a school dance, Ava was already being crowned prom queen. There was no competition, just comparison, and I always came up short. By the time I was 17, I'd stopped trying to compete. It was too exhausting. I tried instead to carve out a quiet life for myself. Something peaceful, away from the chaos of always being second best. I stayed in our small town in Maine, found a job at a local publishing office, and built my own slow, steady rhythm. I met Nathan when I was 24. He wasn't flashy or loud, just kind, solid. The kind of man who listens more than he talks, and when he does speak, every word feels earned. He loved me not because I was Ava's sister, or because I looked like someone he could mold. He just loved me. For me. Ava had married Lucas 4 years earlier, a successful entrepreneur in his mid-30s. He was handsome, reserved, and clear from the start that he didn't want kids. I remember overhearing him at a family dinner once. "Children just aren't in my future," he said plainly, sipping wine while Ava nodded tightly, like she could mold his will into something more palatable. That was always Ava's game. She didn't accept people, she fixed them. Or tried to. Their wedding was a glittery, expensive affair. A designer gown, a champagne fountain, doves in gilded cages. I stood beside her in pale blue satin, smiling until my cheeks ached, while no one noticed I was there. When Lucas refused to budge on the no-kids rule after 3 years of marriage, things started to crack. And Ava, she cracked louder. "Lucas is selfish," she told me one night as we sat on Mom and Dad's front porch. Her voice was tight, her eyes wild. "He only thinks about himself. He doesn't understand what it's like for a woman to ache for a baby, to need to hold something that came from inside her." I said nothing. 'Cause what could I say? She'd known. Everyone had. Lucas had never hidden who he was. Soon after, the fights began. Then the separation. Then the divorce. It was ugly. And suddenly, every family gathering turned into an Ava-centered support group. Mom was devastated. Dad was quiet but heavy with judgment, directed not at Ava of course but at Lucas. Because how dare he not give Ava what she wanted? I tried to stay out of it. Kept my head down. Focused on work and Nathan. And when we got engaged I thought, maybe finally I'd get my moment. My own light, however small. I was wrong. When I told Ava we'd picked a September date, she didn't smile. Didn't hug me. Didn't even offer a fake congratulations. She just stared tight-lipped. "September?" she asked. "You're getting married in September?" "Yes," I said, a little unsure. "Why?" Her lips curled into something that looked like pain but tasted like venom. "That's the month Lucas and I got divorced." I blinked. "Ava, I didn't choose the date to." "To what?" "Mock me," she snapped. "Remind me of what I lost while you flaunt what you gained." "Ava, it's not about you," I whispered. "It's always about you," she spat. I walked away from her that day, heart pounding, fists clenched, shoulders stiff from the weight of yet another accusation I didn't earn. But it didn't stop there. That was just the beginning. A week later I got a message from our cousin Rachel. "Caroline, did you really convince Lucas to leave Ava? She's telling everyone you texted him, told him to free himself so you could get ahead of her." I sat down, my vision going blurry. I had never, not once, spoken to Lucas about their marriage. I barely knew the man outside of awkward holiday dinners and forced small talk. But Ava had told everyone that I'd whispered in his ear, manipulated him, and poisoned him against her, all so I could step into her shoes. She even told our parents I'd bragged about how I'd be married with a child before she ever would. When I tried to explain, Mom only sighed. "Ava is hurting. Can't you show some compassion?" It was always the same script. Ava was the victim. I was the villain. And compassion was a currency only I had to spend. It all came to a head the day I picked up my wedding dress. I was alone in the boutique, wearing ivory lace and a trembling smile, when Mom walked in, her face tight with something that looked like shame. "What did you do, Denise?" she asked. I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Ava says you encouraged Lucas to leave her. That you've been gloating ever since." My mouth dropped open. "Mom, that's a lie. I've never even had Lucas's number." "She said you mocked her," Mom pressed. "Said you told Lucas she was desperate. That she couldn't even keep her husband." The words struck like physical blows. I took a deep breath. "Do you believe her?" Mom looked down. "Ava's been through so much." I stepped out of the dress and changed without another word. As I walked out of the boutique, I felt something in me fracture. I had spent 27 years shrinking, folding, dimming myself to protect Ava's feelings. But this time I was done. Because when someone tries to burn your world down just to keep themselves warm, it's not family, it's fire. And I was done being the kindling. I didn't sleep the night after Mom confronted me at the boutique. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that I hadn't imagined it, that my own mother had stood there, repeating Ava's lies back to me like gospel. Nathan had tried to comfort me, wrapping an arm around me and whispering reassurances, but nothing could quiet the storm inside me. Because the truth was, something in me had broken. Not cracked, broken. The next morning I woke up to a message notification. It was from Aunt Sharon. "Denise, I'm not one to take sides, but Ava's hurting. Maybe it's best if you postpone the wedding. Just until things calm down. You don't want to be the reason the family splits apart." I stared at the message, unable to move. Postpone the wedding. To accommodate my sister's lies. The idea was absurd. And yet, the messages kept coming. Distant relatives, old friends of Mom's, even a former teacher who somehow had gotten wind of the drama. "I hope you and Ava can reconcile soon," they said. "It's sad to see sisters torn apart like this. Especially over a man. Over a man." It was like Ava had handed the world a poisoned script, and everyone was reciting their lines perfectly. And then came the call that shattered the last fragile piece of hope I had from my parents. It was a Sunday afternoon. Nathan and I were going over final details for the wedding. Seating arrangements, music choices, cake flavors. My phone buzzed on the table. It was Mom. I hesitated. Picked it up. "Hi, Mom." There was a pause. Then her voice came through, cold and heavy. "Denise. Your father and I think you should postpone the wedding." The words hit me like a slap. "What?" "For Ava's sake. She's spiraling. She's not eating. She's barely sleeping. She just lost her husband. And now you're throwing a big celebration in her face." I didn't throw anything in her face. I snapped, my voice trembling with rage. "I planned this wedding months ago, long before her divorce. I didn't choose this date to spite her." Mom sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It's not about dates. It's about sensitivity. About family. Ava needs you." I clenched my fists. "And what about me, Mom? What about what I need? Do I not matter?" There was a long silence. And then, "Don't be selfish, Denise. You can reschedule. Family should come first." But I wasn't her family, was I? Not really. Not the way Ava was. I hung up without another word. Nathan came to me then, his eyes searching mine. "What did she say?" Told him. Every word. He sat quietly for a long time, then said, "I think you already know what you need to do." And I did. I needed to move forward. Without them. We went ahead with the wedding plans. Invitations had already gone out. Deposits had been paid. And more importantly, I had a right to my joy. But the silence from my family grew louder by the day. They didn't respond to RSVP cards. They didn't reply to texts. And then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Mom. I remember holding it in my hands, heart pounding as I opened it. The ink was shaky, rushed. Denise, we've made a decision. Your father and I will not be attending the wedding. This isn't because we don't love you, we do. But seeing you get married, seeing you happy would be too painful for Ava. She's already lost so much. She needs our support more than ever. We hope you understand. We're praying for your happiness. Mom. I reread it over and over again. They had chosen Ava. Again. On the day they were supposed to walk me down the aisle, they would be comforting the woman who had turned me into a villain. Because she was hurting. The wedding day came like a storm. Beautiful and terrifying. I wore the white lace gown I'd chosen in that boutique. The one I had once stood in alone, crying as Mom accused me of betrayal. My makeup was flawless. My hair curled in soft waves. I looked like a bride from a dream. But inside I was still grieving. The chapel was packed on Nathan's side. His warm, generous family filled the room with laughter and love. On my side, few co-workers, one distant cousin, a scattering of polite faces and empty seats. And then came the moment. The officiant asked, "Who gives this woman to be married today?" Silence. I looked around. No mom. No dad. No one standing up for me. My heart crumbled. Voice. "I do," Jordan, Nathan's best friend, said firmly as he stepped forward. He looked at me with kind eyes, placed a hand on my shoulder and stood tall. I lost it. A single tear slid down my cheek. I will never forget the moment I looked out at those empty chairs and realized something that would shape the rest of my life. Family is not about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up. Nathan whispered in my ear as we exchanged vows. "You're not alone. I promise." And I believed him. 3 months after the wedding, life began to settle into something soft, something peaceful. Nathan and I moved to a modest 2-bedroom home just outside Seattle. Nothing extravagant, but it felt like freedom. Every morning, sunlight filtered through the gauzy curtains into our kitchen, casting golden light on everything it touched. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to compete for warmth. There were no calls from Mom. No updates from Dad. No messages from Ava. Just silence. And for the first time in my life, cherished it. Nathan never pushed. He never once asked if I wanted to reach out, never pressured me to make peace. He just supported me. Quietly. Steadily. And that meant everything. Then, one afternoon, everything shifted again. I sat cross-legged on the living room rug, organizing a box of old photo albums, when the nausea hit me. I didn't think anything of it at first. Maybe bad takeout, I assumed. But when it happened again the next morning and again the next day, I knew. I bought the test alone, staring at the little pink lines like they were hieroglyphics. Positive. I was pregnant. I burst into tears, not out of fear, not even out of surprise, but because for the first time in my life I was creating something that was mine. Not a shadow of Ava. Not an echo of someone else's story. Nathan came home to find me holding the test with trembling fingers. He stared at it, then looked at me. "You're pregnant." I nodded, still unsure if I was dreaming. He broke into the biggest, most disarming smile I'd ever seen and swept me into his arms. "Oh my God, Denise. We're going to be parents." Later that night, as we lay on the couch, his hand resting gently on my belly, he whispered, "You're going to be an amazing mom." I didn't post much online. I had cut ties with my family months ago. But I wanted to mark this new chapter. So I shared one photo. Nathan and I, smiling in front of our kitchen window, holding an ultrasound image between us. The caption was simple. "Coming soon." That was all it took. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. The name flashing on the screen stopped my breath cold. I stared at it like it was a ghost calling from the past. Nathan saw my hesitation. "You don't have to answer." But something in me needed to. Needed to know what she would say now, months after abandoning me on the most important day of my life. Picked up. "Hello." There was a pause. Then her voice, trembling but familiar. "Denise. I saw your post." I didn't respond. "You're pregnant?" she asked, a strange mix of awe and tension in her voice. "Yes." There was silence again. Then, That's wonderful news. I'm happy for you. I didn't believe her. Not for a second. And then her tone changed, softened into something carefully calculated. But Denise, you know Ava's been trying for a baby too. For years now. And recently, the doctors confirmed she can't have children. I didn't say anything. Just listened. She's devastated, Mom continued. She cries every day. She feels like she's failed as a woman. I stared at the wall, cold creeping up my spine. And now, she said slowly, you're having a baby. Her sister. The one she used to be so close with. Used to be. Mom's voice dropped even lower. Have you thought, maybe you could let Ava be involved? Not as a mother, of course, but maybe like a second mom. It could mean everything to her. I blinked, stunned. You want me to let Ava, the woman who ruined my wedding, lied about me, and destroyed my reputation, be a second mother to my child? Mom sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. She's hurting, Denise. She has no one. You have a family now. Don't you think you could share some of that? I nearly dropped the phone. I can't believe you're asking me this, I said, voice shaking. She abandoned me. You abandoned me. And now that I have something she doesn't, you want to insert her into my life again. You don't understand what she's been through, Mom said quietly. No, you don't understand what I've been through, I snapped. I stood alone on my wedding day because of her. I've had to rebuild my life from scratch. And I will not let her near my child. Denise, I'm done. I hung up, my hand trembling. Nathan walked in moments later and didn't need to ask. He saw it all on my face. You did the right thing, he said. But I couldn't shake the dread that followed me after that call. I knew Ava. She wouldn't stop. Not now. And I was right. 3 weeks later, while Nathan and I were out for lunch at a cafe near the lake, I heard a voice behind me that made my blood run cold. Denise. Turned. It was Lucas. Older, thinner, but unmistakably him. Ava's ex-husband. I stood unsure what to say. Hey, he said awkwardly. Mind if I sit? Nathan looked at me. He nodded. Lucas sat down, his expression serious. I saw your post, he said. Congrats. Thank you, I replied. How have you been? He laughed bitterly. That's actually why I came over. I've been thinking about reaching out for a while, but I didn't know if I should. Waited. I know what Ava's been telling people. That I left her because I didn't want kids. I nodded slowly. Lucas looked me dead in the eye. That's not true. I left because she stopped taking her birth control. Without telling me. She tried to trap me. My stomach dropped. What? She admitted it during an argument. Said she was going to make the decision for both of us. She wanted to get pregnant so I'd stay. And when I found out, she didn't even apologize. She laughed. Nathan's jaw tightened beside me. I kept quiet, Lucas continued. To protect her reputation. I didn't want to ruin her life. But now I see she's been doing it to everyone else. Even you. I was frozen. She told people I abandoned her. That I was cruel. But the truth is, she manipulated me. Lied to me. And now she's doing it again. Nathan reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I looked at Lucas. She told everyone I was the reason you left. Lucas shook his head. You were never part of it. Never. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding in my ears. Had never been about me. It was always about Ava needing someone else to blame. That night I barely slept. Lucas's words spun in my head like a vicious carousel I couldn't get off. She stopped taking birth control. She tried to trap me. He hadn't been cruel. He had been betrayed. And Ava, once again, had rewritten the entire narrative to play the tragic heroine in a story she scripted herself. It wasn't just about our childhood anymore. This wasn't some petty sibling rivalry or childhood jealousy. This was premeditated. Ava had lied about her marriage. Lied about me. Convinced the entire family that I was the one who ruined her life, when she was the one wielding the match, pouring gasoline on everything she touched, then crying when it all went up in flames. I sat at the dining table the next morning, a cup of untouched tea growing cold in my hands, when my phone buzzed. Again. I hesitated, then answered. Denise. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I just wanted to check in. Are you doing okay? I could hear it in her voice. That overly rehearsed sweetness. The same tone she used when she was about to deliver a blow but wanted you to thank her for it afterward. I'm fine, I said flatly. Why? Mom hesitated. Well, Ava's worried about you. Scoff. She said she hasn't been able to reach you. That you blocked her. And that you're under a lot of stress. She's just concerned that you might not be in a healthy place to raise a child. I nearly dropped the phone. What did you just say? Yes. She's worried, Mom repeated, as if it were completely reasonable. She told me you've been unstable lately. That you've isolated yourself. That Nathan might be overworked trying to support you. She said what? And she mentioned that you've had trouble managing money. That you're behind on rent. That stopped me cold. Wait. How would she even know that? She said she spoke to your landlord. My stomach twisted. I hung up on Mom and immediately checked my email. Sure enough, there was a message from our landlord. Hi Denise. I received a call today from someone claiming to be your sister. She said you might be struggling financially and dealing with some emotional issues. I just wanted to confirm everything's okay. I was shaking. Ava was trying to destroy my life again. But this time she was trying to take everything. My home, my stability, my reputation, and maybe even my baby. Nathan shouted. He came running from the office. She's calling our landlord, I said. Telling people I'm unstable. That I can't pay rent. That I can't take care of myself or our child. Nathan's face went white with rage. She's gone too far, he said. I'm calling my mom. And a lawyer. She's also telling Mom that Mark cheated on her and that I took his side. She's rewriting the whole story again. Nathan grabbed his phone and dialed his mother first, explaining everything. Then he called our lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Elaine we'd hired to help with some contract work for Nathan's consulting firm. When he told her what Ava was doing, her tone hardened. That's not just manipulation, Elaine said. That's harassment. Possibly defamation. I sat on the couch in shock, barely hearing the rest of the call. Ava wasn't just spreading rumors. She was building a case, one lie at a time, to tear me down completely. I'd spent my whole life watching her sabotage me emotionally, but this was different. This was war. Elaine worked fast. By the next morning, she'd drafted a formal cease and desist letter addressed to Ava and my parents. The document laid everything out clearly. Continued interference in our personal affairs, spreading false information to landlords and family members, contacting third parties under false pretenses. All of it had to stop immediately. If they didn't, Elaine warned, we would file for a protective order and sue for defamation. Nathan and I drove to the law office together to sign and notarize the letter. As I signed my name at the bottom, my hands shook, not out of fear, but from the weight of what this meant. I wasn't just standing up to Ava. I was cutting the last tie. Elaine sent the letter via email and certified mail that day. The silence afterward was deafening. And for a few days it was peaceful. I changed my phone number. Nathan installed a new home security system. We notified our landlord and anyone else Ava might try to contact again. Elaine gave them clear instructions. Any communication from Ava or my parents was to be immediately forwarded to her office. For the first time in months I slept. But deep down I didn't believe it was over. One evening I sat on the couch rubbing my belly, now showing, and whispered softly to the baby inside me. I promise, little one. I'll protect you from all of this. From her. From them. You'll never feel like I did. Nathan came in and handed me a glass of juice. You're quiet tonight, he said gently. He nodded. I just keep thinking why. Why does she hate me so much? Why does she want to ruin me when I've done nothing but stay out of her way? Nathan sat beside me, pulling me into his arms. Because she can't stand that you're happy without her. That you stopped playing her game. Tears welled in my eyes. She was my sister. I used to love her, Nathan. Even when she made me feel small. Even when Mom always picked her first. I would have done anything for her. I know, he whispered. But I'm done being the sacrificial lamb. You're not a lamb, Nathan said. You're a lion. And you just roared for the first time. The next morning Elaine called. She responded, she said simply. My heart skipped. She acknowledged receipt. And said she will not contact you again. I exhaled. A deep, slow breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding for years. It was over. Maybe. But something told me Ava wasn't finished yet. A week passed after the cease and desist letter. Then too. Ava stayed silent. Mom didn't call. Dad didn't either. Not even a passive-aggressive text. And for a while I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally gotten the message. But peace in my life always came with an expiration date. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when I received the call that shattered the illusion. I had just returned from my prenatal checkup. The doctor had confirmed the baby was developing perfectly. Heart strong and steady. Nathan and I had even heard the first kicks on the monitor. The sound had made me cry right there in the office. That soft, rhythmic thump was the most beautiful noise I'd ever heard. I was glowing, hopeful. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated but picked up. Hello. Denise Wright. The voice was official, clipped. This is Officer Caldwell from the Seattle Police Department. We've received a report regarding a potential domestic disturbance and concerns about your mental health and prenatal care. I'd like to ask you a few questions. My world tilted. What? I stammered. There's no disturbance. Who filed this? I'm not at liberty to say. But we're obligated to follow up. I stood frozen in the hallway, heart pounding. I have medical records. I have a clean bill of health. What kind of accusation is this? The officer paused. The report said you've exhibited erratic behavior, verbal outbursts, possible delusions, and emotional instability. There's also a claim that your partner is financially controlling, and you've been seen crying publicly on multiple occasions. I felt like the floor had opened beneath me. Eva. Course. She had taken her attacks to a new level. Police report. A fabricated case to suggest I was an unfit mother before my baby was even born. Officer Caldwell, I said as calmly as I could. I have a clean mental health record. I've never had any police contact. My husband is a licensed consultant with no history of financial misconduct. This is a personal vendetta from a family member I've legally distanced myself from. He was quiet for a long moment. Would you be open to voluntarily allowing a social worker to stop by for a wellness check? I understand this sounds invasive, but it might be the fastest way to close the file. I had nothing to hide. Yes, I said, voice trembling. Please. I want this over. Nathan was livid when I told him. She's not just trying to ruin your reputation now. She's trying to take our child. We spent the next few hours gathering every piece of documentation we had. Letters from my OBGYN, character references, employment records, even the cease and desist letter and all emails between Elaine and Ava. 3 days later, a social worker named Harriet visited our home. She was warm, intelligent, and perceptive. She asked about my pregnancy, checked our living conditions, and spent some time observing my interaction with Nathan. After 2 hours she smiled. Denise, I'm not just closing this report. I'm flagging it for false claims. This is clearly targeted harassment. He paused. May I ask? Do you know who might have filed it? He nodded. My sister. Do you have legal counsel? Yes. Good, Harriet said. Because if she does this again, you may want to consider a restraining order, not just a cease and desist. After she left, I collapsed on the couch. Nathan sat beside me, arms wrapped tightly around me. She's trying to rip you apart from every direction. But she's underestimating you. I looked down at my belly and whispered. She's trying to punish me for having what she couldn't. But what she doesn't realize, Nathan said softly, is that everything she's done has only made you stronger. He was right. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about control. Ava had spent a lifetime manipulating everyone, twisting reality, rewriting narratives, until no one questioned her. But when I stopped playing my role as the scapegoat, she panicked. And now she was clawing at the edges of my life, desperate to maintain the story where I was the villain. But something else had shifted too. For the first time since this war began, I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing to fight back. Elaine helped us draft a detailed harassment dossier. Every text, every voicemail, every time Ava lied or impersonated me, including her call to the landlord, her statements to family, and now the false police report. And in the middle of collecting this, something unexpected happened. I received a message from Lucas. I've been thinking. I know it's not my place, but if you ever want me to give a statement about what Ava did during our marriage, I will. It's time someone told the truth. I stared at the message for a long time. Then typed back, yes. I want the truth on record. Lucas sent us a detailed written statement the next day, complete with dates, screenshots, and his own timeline of events. It perfectly aligned with what I'd already documented. Elaine read it all and said, "If she files one more false report, we go to court." He nodded. No more silence. No more be the bigger person. No more pretending Ava was just a wounded woman lashing out. She was calculated. She was dangerous. And I was done letting her win. Later that week, as Nathan and I were curled up on the sofa, he kissed my forehead and said, "Do you think she'll stop now?" I turned my head slowly. "No," I whispered. "She never stops until someone makes her." And this time that someone would be me. The next few weeks were eerily calm. No anonymous calls. No mysterious messages. No more Ava-fueled drama trickling into my inbox or poisoning my phone. But if there's one thing I've learned about my sister, it's this. Silence is never peace. It's just a breath before the next strike. I used that breath to prepare. Elaine filed a formal harassment complaint and began documenting Ava's violations of the cease and desist. She advised us to request a restraining order, not just for Ava but potentially for my parents as well, since they were clearly complicit in some of her actions. "Especially your mother," Elaine said bluntly. "She's not neutral. She's a flying monkey." That phrase made something click in my brain. The whole dynamic between Ava and my parents. It wasn't just favoritism. It was enmeshment. Mom didn't just support Ava, she enabled her. She became her mouthpiece, her shield, her army. And I was always expected to be the casualty. No more. I filed the paperwork for a protective order. It was granted temporarily, pending a hearing. The same day I filed, I received a package in the mail. There was no return address. Inside was a baby onesie, pale yellow, embroidered with the words, "My aunt loves me most." My breath caught. I stared at the tiny fabric, bile rising in my throat. There was no note, no signature, but the message was clear. Ava was still watching, still reaching. Nathan was furious. "We're changing the locks. Again. And getting motion-activated cameras inside the house." I didn't argue. That night I sat on the nursery floor, the room we'd just finished painting sky blue, and held that onesie in my lap. I stared at it until the tears came. Not because I was afraid, but because this woman, this sister I once idolized, had transformed into something monstrous, something obsessed. She didn't want my baby. She didn't even want my life. She wanted my ruin. And the scariest part was how easily the world had believed her. The next morning I received another message, this time from Linda, Nathan's mom. "Just a heads up, your sister tried to contact me again. She said you're mentally unstable and might not survive childbirth. She's trying to get people worried enough to intervene." That was it. I drove straight to Elaine's office with the message in hand. "She's implying I'm suicidal," I said. "That I'm dangerous to my own child. She's laying the groundwork for someone to step in and declare me unfit. Probably so she can try to get custody." Elaine nodded grimly. "We'll bring that to the judge at the hearing." We submitted Lucas's sworn statement. Harriet's social worker report. The cease and desist. The landlord's email. Package. Linda's message. It was a fortress of truth, and I was ready to wield it. The court date came fast. Nathan sat beside me in the hallway of the courthouse, holding my hand. My belly was pronounced now, 7.5 months along, the baby kicking gently inside me, as if he knew this was a fight for both of us. Ava arrived 5 minutes before the hearing. She looked thinner, harsher. Her once groomed hair hung limply around her shoulders. But her eyes, those cold, bitter eyes, were exactly the same. She didn't speak to me. She didn't even glance in my direction. Inside the courtroom, she sat with her arms folded tightly. Her jaw clenched as Elaine laid out everything. The harassment, the impersonations, the false reports, the malicious attempts to destabilize my life, and now my pregnancy. Lucas testified via Zoom. Measured. Devastating. I didn't leave Ava because I didn't want kids, he said. I left because she lied. Repeatedly. And when I confronted her, she blamed everyone else, including her sister. The judge listened quietly. When it was Ava's turn to speak, she didn't deny most of the evidence. She pivoted. I was grieving, she said. I lost my marriage. Can't have children. I just wanted to be close to my niece or nephew. Denise cut me off. She blocked me. She wouldn't even speak to me. She turned to the judge, her voice trembling with rehearsed pain. Everything I did was out of love. Elaine stood up calmly. Your Honor, love doesn't look like harassment, or fraud, or false police reports. The judge agreed. The restraining order was granted. Permanent, enforceable for a minimum of 5 years. Neither Ava nor my parents were allowed to contact me, Nathan, or anyone in our immediate lives again. Any violation would result in criminal charges. Ava said nothing as she left the courtroom. No apology, no glance back. And just like that she was gone. Afterward, Nathan and I walked to the car in silence. The air smelled like rain. The sky was cracked with gray. When we got home, I walked into the nursery, pulled out the yellow onesie, and dropped it into the trash. I won't let her touch even one thread of this child's life, I whispered. And I meant it. A week later I went into labor. It was long, painful. But when I held my baby boy for the first time, everything fell quiet. I looked into his eyes, soft brown just like Nathan's, and something inside me settled. I had done it. I had broken the cycle. The first time I held my son in my arms, I knew something in me had changed forever. It wasn't just the overwhelming love or the fierce instinct to protect. It was the peace. The deep, silent peace of knowing I had won. Not in the way Ava would define victory. There were no applause, no spotlights, no crowds of people singing my praises. But I had survived. And more than that, I had built something beautiful, something untouchable. We named him Micah. A name that meant, who is like God. Because no one else could have written a story like ours. Nathan was there for everything. From the sleepless nights to the first little gasping giggles Micah made in his sleep, to those early mornings when the sun hadn't even risen but we were already up, just watching him breathe. I'd catch Nathan staring at him sometimes with such quiet reverence, like he couldn't believe this was real. Neither could I. But as blissful as those first few weeks were, there were still scars beneath the surface. Late at night, when the world was quiet and Micah lay nestled between us, I'd sometimes feel the old pain flicker through me like a ghost, the ache of abandonment, of betrayal. The memory of the empty chairs at our wedding. The ones that should have been filled with my parents. My mother never called. Not even after Micah was born. No letter. No apology. Nothing. And honestly, that hurt worse than any lie Ava had ever told. I could understand jealousy. I could even understand delusion. But a mother choosing silence over her grandchild. That broke something I don't think I'll ever get back. Nathan tried in his own way to fill that space. So did his parents. Linda became a constant, bringing warm meals, helping me figure out swaddling and burping and the endless cycle of diapers and lullabies. She loved Micah from the moment she saw him. "He's perfect," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Just like his mama." I cried in her arms that day. Not because I was sad, but because someone finally saw me. Not as a disappointment. Not as Ava's shadow. As a mother. 3 months after Micah's birth, something unexpected happened. I was sorting laundry in the living room when I saw a news article pop up on my phone. It was from a local online blog. A headline: "Former community chairwoman Ava Wright investigated for false allegations and harassment." My breath caught. I opened the article. Apparently, one of Ava's former co-workers had filed a complaint. Then another. Then a former friend. All women. All of them said the same thing: that Ava had manipulated them, lied about them to others, tried to control their personal lives with threats, rumors, and emotional abuse. One woman even claimed Ava had impersonated her in a job application to sabotage her chances. The article cited a pattern of vindictive behavior, particularly toward women she saw as threats. It was all unraveling. The mask was cracking. I sat there, stunned, a mix of shock and something else swirling in my chest. Not joy. Not triumph. Just a validation. I wasn't the only one. Ava's darkness had spilled into other people's lives too. But finally the world was seeing it. I didn't share the article. I didn't gloat. I didn't say a word to anyone outside of Nathan and Elaine. But inside I knew. She couldn't hurt me anymore. One day, years from now, Micah may ask why he doesn't know his grandparents. Or his aunt. Why our family gatherings are always filled with Nathan's side. And mine is just empty. And when he's ready, I'll tell him. I'll tell him about strength. About surviving when the people who should love you the most choose instead to break you. About knowing your worth, even when others try to bury it beneath lies. About choosing your own family. And never apologizing for protecting your peace. But most of all, I'll tell him about legacy. That it's not blood that defines who you are. It's who you choose to be despite it. Because I was born in the shadow of a golden child. Gaslit. Ignored. Lied about. But in the end I found the light inside myself. And it was enough to burn down every lie that ever tried to define me. Micah is almost 3 now. He loves dinosaurs and thunderstorms. He hates broccoli and bedtime. And he thinks Nathan is the strongest man on earth. We still live in the same little house in Seattle. The one Ava once tried to get us kicked out of. The one she said I didn't deserve. The one where laughter now fills every room. Last week, Micah looked at me, crayon in hand, and said, "Mama, are you happy?" Smiled. "I'm free, sweetheart." That's even better. Denise Wright's story is more than just a family drama. It's a declaration. Boundary. A reclamation of identity after years of being buried under someone else's insecurities. She was told to be quiet, to be kind, to be accommodating. And she did, until it cost her everything. But in the end, she found something far more valuable than approval. She found herself. If you've ever been scapegoated, gaslit, or made to feel like your pain didn't matter, remember Denise's story. You're not alone. And you have the right to protect your peace, your joy, and your future, no matter who tries to take it from you. Subscribe to Revenge Echoes for more powerful stories of truth, healing, and comeback. And tell us in the comments. Have you ever had to cut ties with a toxic family member? Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear.